30,000-ton illegal dump shocks protected beauty spot in Leicestershire. A shocking environmental crime has come to light near a quiet village in Leicestershire, where an estimated 30,000 tons of household waste have been illegally dumped at a protected natural site. Now we take a deeper look and break down this entire story on the AI podcast.
30,000 tons of household garbage. I mean, to put that number into perspective, that is roughly the weight of 15 space shuttles.
Yeah, that is a staggering amount of weight.
Right. Now, I want you to imagine trying to hide 15 space shuttles worth of rotting trash in broad daylight right next to a major highway, completely, without anyone noticing.
Which just sounds impossible.
It really does.
Yeah.
How would you even begin to orchestrate that? Well, today we are looking at an absolute masterclass in environmental deception. We are diving into this modern-day mystery, really. Picture this peaceful, protected nature reserve, a place where people go to walk their dogs.
A sanctuary, essentially.
Exactly, but it has secretly been hiding a massive, foul-smelling secret. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this shocking discovery at Keys and Pits in Leicestershire. We're going to explore the mind-boggling scale of the crime, the ecological heartbreak of it all, and the ongoing investigation to catch the people who actually did this.
And I think it is so important to emphasize why this matters. Because, this isn't just a bit of casual littering, right?
Yeah, definitely not.
It's an industrial-scale desecration of a highly protected site.
Hmm?
The sheer mechanics of an operation like this, they challenge our basic assumptions about the world around us. We are so used to the invisible infrastructure of our cities.
Like the trucks and the delivery vans and all that.
Right. The trucks moving goods, earth movers shaping land. We don't realize how easily that same everyday infrastructure can be weaponized. Because that is what happened here. They weaponized everyday background noise to turn an area of natural beauty into a hazard zone.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sheer logistics of this crime are what I just keep getting stuck on.
Yeah.
When you look at the source material, the numbers feel almost impossible to comprehend.
They really do.
I mean, 30,000 tons of household waste, and it covers an area the size of an entire football pitch.
Yeah, a full football pitch of garbage.
And the sources detail how these criminals attempted to conceal this massive footprint by just covering it with a layer of soil. Which, to me, it reminds me of a little kid who makes this colossal mess in the living room,
Oh.
And then they just try to sweep an entire mountain of dirt under this tiny little area rug.
Right, exactly. But visually, from a distance, that rug actually worked for a while.
Really?
Yeah. You cover a mound of waste with fresh earth, and to anyone just kind of glancing over, it simply looks like standard agricultural landscaping or, routine groundworks.
Wait, stop. I have to interrupt there, because that logic completely breaks down for me the second you factor in the vehicle.
Like trucks, yeah.
Right. We are talking about thousands of heavy garbage trucks. If a standard heavy goods vehicle carries, about 20 tons of waste?
Give or take, yeah.
Okay, so you are looking at roughly 1,500 truckloads to move 30,000 tons. That's 3,000 vehicle movements in and out of a site. You do not just discreetly parallel park 1,500 garbage trucks.
You really don't.
So how did the highway authorities, or anyone for that matter, not flag a massive convoy of waste vehicles just constantly pulling off the road?
Well, to understand how they pulled off the transport, you really have to look at the geography of the deception. The location is key.
Okay, lay it out for me.
The waste was uncovered at a site tucked just behind a service station along the A5. This is near the very quiet village of Shawwell. Now, the A5 is a major, heavily trafficked commercial artery.
Oh, so there's just constant traffic.
Constant heavy goods traffic passing through there day and night, so the trucks didn't look out of place at all.
Oh, I see. Because they were essentially swimming in a river of other trucks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They blended perfectly into the industrial transit that happens on the A5 every single minute of the day. The sight of heavy vehicles pulling off near a service station, well, that wouldn't trigger an alarm for a casual observer or even highway patrols.
Because pulling into a service station is exactly what trucks are supposed to do.
Right. The criminals used the legitimate rhythm of the highway as camouflage. Visually, as an operational cover-up, it was incredibly sound.
I mean, sure, that works for the eyes. But they entirely forgot about the biology of the situation.
They absolutely did.
Because you can cover 30,000 tons of rotting garbage with a layer of dirt, but you cannot put a lid on the chemical reactions happening underneath.
No, you can't. And what's fascinating here is how the sensory details are what finally brought down this massive stealth operation.
The smell, basically.
Yeah, visual deception is one thing, but you simply cannot silence the biogeochemistry of decomposing organic matter.
Nature always wins.
Exactly. As that household waste sat compacted under the soil, it was essentially starved of oxygen, and that triggers anaerobic digestion.
Okay, anaerobic digestion.
Right, it's a process where bacteria break down the waste without oxygen, and they start producing a cocktail of gases. The primary ones being methane and hydrogen sulfide.
Hydrogen sulfide. That is the gas that smells famously like rotting eggs, right?
Oh yeah, it creates a very potent physical wall of stench. And the timing here is critical too. The sources note that around the Easter period, passersby started reporting this unmistakable pungent smell.
Oh, wow. Easter. So spring.
Spring. As temperatures began to rise, the rate of that bacterial digestion accelerated. It acted like a giant pressure cooker under the soil.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. The heat speeds up the rotting, the gas expands, and it inevitably forces its way out through the dirt cover. And Easter is exactly when people are finally getting outside, walking their dogs, enjoying the warmer weather near the reserve.
Yeah, the biology completely defeated the visual cover-up. It was the smell that finally forced officials to go in, pull back the soil, and inspect the area.
Which brings us to the actual terrain they dumped this on. Because, the authorities didn't just find a random field behind a service station. They found themselves standing in the middle of a literal ecological crime scene.
Yeah, it wasn't just any land.
Right. The location, Caves in Pits, is a designated SSSI. That's a site of special scientific interest.
And that designation, it means the area has immense legally recognized conservation value. It's protected for a reason. The sources actually feature commentary from Phil Hucken. He's the principal manager at Natural England for Leicestershire and Rutland.
Okay, what did he have to say about it?
Well, he explained that Caves in Pits contain some of the finest remaining areas of neutral marsh in the entire region.
Wait, let's actually define that for a second. Because neutral marsh sounds quite generic, but it is actually a highly specific scientific term, isn't it?
It is incredibly specific. When we think of wetlands, we usually think of two extremes. You have bogs, which are highly acidic environments filled with peat.
Right.
Or you have fens, which are often highly alkaline because they sit on limestone or something similar. A neutral marsh, though, sits on a very precise pH knife edge, hovering right around a neutral pH of 7.
It is essentially the Goldilocks zone of wetlands.
That's a great way to put it. And because it is in that Goldilocks zone, a neutral marsh supports a hyper-diverse, complex, and deeply interwoven ecosystem. We are talking about specific plant life, insects, and rare bird species that absolutely cannot survive in acidic or alkaline conditions.
They need that exact balance.
They are completely specialized for that exact chemical chemistry.
Which just makes the introduction of household waste so catastrophic. We are not just talking about the physical crushing of plants under 30,000 tons of garbage. We are talking about chemical warfare on the soil itself.
Chemical warfare is right.
Think about an unlined dump acting like a massive toxic tea bag. Every time it rains, the water filters down through all that rotting food, the plastics, the discarded cleaning chemicals, the heavy metals.
All of it.
It steeps in that garbage, creating a highly toxic liquid.
And that liquid is called leachate. You have hit on the exact mechanism of the destruction here. A marsh, by definition, has a high water table. So when that toxic leachate percolates down, it immediately merges with the groundwater.
Oh no, so it just spreads.
It spreads. It doesn't just make the marsh dirty, it fundamentally alters the pH and the chemical composition of the water in the soil. It rewires the habitat so native species literally cannot survive there anymore.
Wow. That entirely explains why Hucken used the word heartbreaking to describe the destruction. You cannot just scrape the garbage off the top and expect the neutral marsh to bounce back. The chemistry of the site has been completely poisoned.
It has.
And frankly, the toxicity doesn't just stop at the property line either. The sources highlight the profound human toll this is taking on the people who live in the neighboring village of Shawwell.
Yeah, the locals are really bearing the brunt of the atmospheric fallout here.
They are. We hear from a longtime resident named Sally Ann Boondock. She detailed how this landscape, which used to be beautiful, is now completely unlivable. She pointed out that whenever the wind changes direction, the stench blows right into their homes.
I can't even imagine living next to that.
Right. Another villager called the whole situation disgusting. And they are raising entirely valid fears about the potential health risks.
And those fears are entirely grounded in the science of what is happening in that mound. We mentioned the anaerobic digestion producing methane and hydrogen sulfide earlier. Well, in the waste industry, this is called landfill gas.
Okay, landfill gas.
In a legal engineered landfill, that gas is carefully captured, it's vented, or flared off safely. But this is an illegal, unlined, unregulated pile. Those potentially harmful, volatile, organic compounds are just seeping raw into the surrounding air that the community breathes.
It flips the entire utility of the land. Caves in Pits was explicitly meant to be a natural haven, a place for the community to walk and get away from the grime of modern life. Now, it is a source of profound anxiety.
The total opposite of a haven.
Exactly. The Environment Agency and Natural England are actively urging the public to stay away while the investigation is underway.
And that transition from public sanctuary to public health hazard, it carries an astronomical financial cost. When you look at the scale of the chemical damage, the leachate, the landfill gas, and the physical removal of 30,000 tons of waste, the legal cleanup of a site like this runs into the millions.
Millions of pounds, which naturally forces us to follow the money. Because if the cleanup costs millions, someone made millions creating the mess.
Well, without a doubt.
And here is where it gets really interesting and, frankly, completely baffling. The source material highlights a really frustrating detail. There is literally a licensed legal waste facility located just a short drive away from Caves in Pits.
Which is the core paradox of this entire operation.
It really is. I have to ask you, listening right now, what stands out to you about that proximity? I mean, you have the trucks, you have the drivers, you have the fuel, and you have the waste loaded up. You are already in the immediate area. Why orchestrate 1,500 illegal truck trips to a protected neutral marsh when a legal, legitimate option is right around the corner?
Well, to understand that proximity paradox, we have to look at the mechanics of the black market and the economics of waste disposal.
Okay, teach me the economics of trash.
So, legal waste facilities charge what are known as gate fees just to enter the site. But more importantly, there are heavy government landfill taxes applied to every single ton of waste you dump.
Oh, I see.
These taxes are deliberately set very high to encourage recycling and discourage throwing things in the ground.
So if you have 30,000 tons of waste, the legal landfill tax alone would be astronomical.
It represents an absolute fortune. What rogue operators do is they undercut the legal facilities. They approach businesses or construction sites and offer to dispose of their waste for, slightly less than the legal rate.
And the business thinks they're getting a good deal.
Exactly. The business pays them, thinking everything is above board. But then the criminals bypass the legal facility entirely. They pocket the gate fees, they evade the millions in landfill taxes, and they just dump the waste in a field for free.
Wow. They essentially turned a highly protected, biologically rare neutral marsh into a tax-free offshore bank account.
That's a terrifyingly accurate way to describe it.
It wasn't a crime of convenience at all. It was a highly calculated effort to extract maximum profit right under everyone's noses, using the nearby A5 as cover.
It demonstrates a chilling level of logistical sophistication, really, and just a total disregard for the consequences. But the authorities are not treating this as a mere regulatory violation.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Officials from both the Environment Agency and Natural England have mobilized a massive multi-agency response.
Yeah, Ian Jones, the area director for the Environment Agency in the West Midlands, made a very public statement condemning the dumping. He called it a sickening act of environmental crime, which is unusually strong language for an official agency statement.
It is strong, but the language matches the severity of the act. He confirmed that a full criminal investigation is currently in progress.
So what are they looking for?
Their objective is to track the paper trail. They need to find out where those trucks originated, identify the orchestrators, and hold them fully accountable in a criminal court.
Good. So what does the ground game look like right now? I mean, while investigators are tracking down the architects of this crime, what is happening at the marsh itself?
Well, the immediate tactical priority is containment. The sources note that specialized teams are urgently assessing the local air and water quality.
To see how bad the damage is.
Exactly. They have to map out exactly how far the toxic leachate we discussed earlier has spread through the groundwater of the marsh. They're trying to put a tourniquet on the damage, basically figuring out how to intercept the contamination before it irreparably poisons the wider water table.
That sounds like an incredibly delicate operation.
It is. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this isolated dump is a massive stress test for our modern environmental protection systems.
How?
Well, these agencies are built to monitor compliance at legal facilities, right? They check paperwork, they inspect engineered liners. It is an entirely different operational challenge to step into a devastated, complex natural habitat and attempt to reverse an event of total negligent destruction. It really tests the limits of their forensic capabilities, their legal power, and their scientific resources.
Wow. So what does this all mean? Let's trace the arc of what we have uncovered today. We started with the sheer counterintuitive logistics, hiding a football pitch of household waste weighing 30,000 tons right behind a bustling A5 service station.
Just by using the background noise of industrial traffic as camouflage.
Exactly. Then we broke down the delicate biogeochemistry of the neutral marsh, a rare pH-balanced ecosystem that is currently being chemically rewired by toxic leachate. We explored the black market economics that motivated criminals to bypass a nearby legal facility just to pocket millions in evaded taxes.
And finally, we looked at the intense multi-agency criminal probe working to stop the spread of contamination and bring the perpetrators to justice.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
The entire situation exposes the vulnerability of the natural spaces we assume are safe, simply because they are protected on paper.
And that vulnerability is exactly what the residents of Shawwell are grappling with right now. I keep returning to the question raised by resident Sally and Boondock in the source material. It is the ultimate dilemma of this deep dive.
Which is?
How do you remove 30,000 tons of garbage from a delicate marsh?
Yeah, that's the multi-million-pound question.
Right. You cannot just make it vanish. Moving it means bringing those 1,500 heavy trucks right back into the area. It means using massive excavators to rip up the very earth they are trying to save, releasing even more of that trapped landfill gas in the process.
That is the incredibly harsh reality of environmental remediation. Sometimes the cure inflicts severe trauma on the landscape all over again. The extraction process will be almost as disruptive as the initial dumping.
Which leaves us with a rather unsettling reality to confront.
It does. The sheer fact that 30,000 tons of our everyday household waste could be secretly mobilized, transported by thousands of trucks, and hidden in a nature reserve forces us to look differently at the infrastructure around us.
It really does change your perspective.
It reveals the massive, invisible rivers of garbage flowing down our major roads every single day.
An invisible river of garbage. I love that phrasing.
Think about it. If a mountain of trash, the weight of 15 space shuttles, can seamlessly blend into the background traffic of the A5 for months, perfectly disguised as everyday industry, it leaves you wondering.
Wondering what?
What else is moving right under our noses, completely unseen, simply because we have been conditioned to tune out the trucks passing us on the highway?
Wow. That is an incredibly provocative thought to leave off on. The next time you are driving down a major road and you see a convoy of heavy goods vehicles rolling by, you might look at them a little differently.
You definitely will.
You might wonder exactly what is hiding in plain sight, camouflaged by the routine of the commute. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We love untangling these complex stories and finding the hidden mechanisms with you. Keep your eyes open, keep asking questions, and keep questioning the world around you.
Okay, one question for you. How could such a massive 30,000 ton illegal dumping operation take place over time without being detected earlier by authorities, nearby businesses, or surveillance systems in the area? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.